The wind moved over the open land like a quiet river, steady and cold. It was late winter in the San Simon Valley. Mesquite bushes stood low and dark, and black stones were scattered like old bones of the earth. A young cowboy rode along a faint line of trail, his hat pulled down against the chill. He had been riding since morning and had only a little water, a dry biscuit, and thoughts that came and went like birds. He was not in a rush. He had no boss waiting and no set camp to reach. He was simply moving because moving felt better than standing still. As the sun slid toward the far hills, he felt that old change in the air that comes before night. Every sound grew thinner and clearer. His horse's steps were soft on the hard ground, and the leather of the saddle creaked now and then. He listened for anything useful. A trickle of water, a shift of brush, the far call of a bird. For long minutes there was nothing but his own small world, breath, hooves, the light, and the wind. Then he heard it. First high yips that danced along the rim of hearing, then another sound below it, soft and low like the hush of a drum far away. He stopped his horse and lifted his head. The sounds came again. Not close but not far. They were not the careless calls of animals at play. These were watchful sounds, circling sounds. His eyes narrowed. He turned his horse off the trail and toward the sound, not fast but steady. He kept one hand near his rope and the other on the reins. He did not speak. There was no one to speak to but the wind. He saw it before he reached it. A small flat in the shelter of a dark rock, a patch of open ground where the earth held old ash and broken brush. He slowed and looked for signs. There were prints in the earth. Many feet, many hooves, some recent, some older, all crossing each other like lines in a broken map. He swung down from the saddle and led his horse by the reins. He did not want to make noise. He did not want to scare what might be there. At first he saw only shapes. Then he saw a person on the ground. He paused to let his eyes adjust. The person was a woman, wrapped and tied near a short stake hammered into the soil. She lay on her side. Her face was turned away from him. A ragged piece of cloth covered her shoulders. Her hair was dark and tangled from the wind. He could see that she was breathing, slow and shallow. He could also see that her wrists and ankles were bound with rawhide strips. The rawhide had dried hard in the cold air, and the knots looked small and tight. He stood still and watched the dark edges of the flat for a long moment. He did not want to walk into trouble. He looked for the shape of a man behind a stone, for a flick of movement, for a glint of metal. He saw nothing but brush, rock, and the long line of dusk. The wind picked up and then fell quiet again. He moved closer. The woman's eyes were half open, and he could tell she was awake but weak. He lowered himself into a slow crouch so he would not scare her. He kept his hands where she could see them. "I'm here," he said in a soft voice. "You're safe with me." He did not know her language. He did not even know her name. But a soft voice is still a soft voice in any tongue. He took out his canteen and shook it. There was some water left. He lifted the canteen to her lips and poured a trickle. She swallowed and he waited. He poured again and she swallowed again. He saw the small rise and fall of her chest begin to steady. He looked at her hands and feet. The raw hide had cut into the skin. He did not touch the knots yet. He needed to think. He needed to decide how to help in a way that did not cause harm. He raised his head and listened again. The soft animal sounds drifted on the wind, sometimes closer, sometimes farther, never gone. He knew what those sounds meant. Night would bring colder air and less light. Night would bring new risks. He did not want to leave her alone, not even for a minute. He also did not want to light a bright fire that could be seen from far away. He had to choose each step with care. He walked his horse to a place behind a low rise of rock where the animal could stand out of the wind. He looped the reins over a brush branch. He gathered fallen twigs and small sticks with quick hands. He did not search far. He did not want to be away from her side. When he had enough for a small, careful fire, he brought them back and built the tiniest ring he could, with stones that were already close at hand. He placed the sticks like a small house, leaving space for air to pass, and he struck a spark. The fire took, thin and steady. He kept it low. He fed it pieces no thicker than his thumb. He wanted a little warmth, a little light, and a steady smell of smoke that might keep curious animals from stepping too close. He spoke to her again, hoping the sound of his voice would help. "I'm here," he said. "You were left, but I won't leave." He did not say more. He did not ask questions she could not answer. He only showed his hands before he moved, and moved slowly when he did. He studied the knots at her wrists and ankles. Rawhide is strong when dry and more gentle when wet. He poured a little water over the bindings and waited for the strips to soften. He slid the edge of his small knife under one knot, careful as a tailor. He did not want to nick her skin. He did not want to startle her with quick movements. He worked in silence and the knots began to give. When her hands were free, she pulled them to her chest and winced a little, then breathed deeper. He cut the bindings at her ankles and set the rawhide aside. He did not throw it into the fire. He left it where he could see it, like a record of what had been done and undone. He tore a strip from the edge of his bedroll and wrapped it around her wrists, not tight, only enough to keep the cold air off. He did the same for her ankles. He offered her more water, a sip at a time. From his coat pocket he took the dry biscuit, broke it into small pieces, and placed them near her hand. She took one and chewed slowly. He watched her eyes. They were tired but not empty. They held a small light now, like the small fire, not bright but steady. He looked toward the west where the prince led away. Many people had been here. He could see shapes in the ground where horses had stood. He could see where someone had kicked at the ash of an old fire. He did not know who they were. He did not need to know to understand the risk. If they returned and found him here, things could go badly. He felt that thought pass through him. He examined it and let it go. There was only the choice before him, stay or go. To go would be to leave her. To stay would be to keep watch and face what came. He made his choice. He told her again, I will not leave. He set a small screen of brush on the side where the wind bit hardest. He made sure there was clear ground around the fire so a spark could not run into the dry brush. He tied his horse a little farther downwind so the animal would shift and snort if something approached. He checked the small valley of land around them, the rise of rock behind, the open lane of hard earth to the east, the curve of mesquite to the south. He picked a place near the rock where he could sit and see in two directions at once. He sat with his back to the stone, the fire at his side, the woman on the other side of the flame. The light fell away by slow degrees, and the sky turned a deep blue that looked close enough to touch. The first stars showed. The cold moved in with quiet steps. The fire whispered. The woman slept, then woke, then slept again. He checked her breathing, checked the covers, adjusted the cloth at her wrists and ankles. He thought about boiling water for a warm drink, but he did not have a pot for it, and he did not want to build the fire higher. So he kept it small and tended it like a careful friend. Now and then a shape moved beyond the circle of light. He could hear feet in the brush, not running, just curious. He did not panic. He did not make sudden noise. He spoke in a calm tone, words without heat, as if telling a simple story. This is our place tonight, he said. We mean no harm. We want no trouble. We are passing through. He believed in the power of a calm voice, even if no one understood the exact words. The woman opened her eyes and looked at him. She did not smile, not yet, but she did not look afraid. She lifted her hand a little and let it fall back on the bedroll. He nodded and placed another small stick on the fire. He could feel the weight of the long night ahead, but he did not feel tired. He felt steady. He had made his choice, and choices can warm a person as much as a coat. He thought about how he had ended up here. Many days of riding, many miles of empty land. He had left other places because they were noisy in the wrong ways. He liked quiet work and straight deals. He did not always find them. But here, with one person in need and one person able to help, the deal was as straight as any in the world. He did not need a promise or a payment. The night itself was the promise. Stay and do what you can. He looked at the sky again and judged the time by the stars he knew. He counted slow breaths to keep his mind clear. He let memories pass without holding them. He stayed alert to small sounds. The crack of a twig, the shift of his horse, the sigh of the wind as it changed a little and brought a new scent. When the woman stirred and tried to sit up, he moved closer and helped her to a sitting position, supporting her back with his folded coat. She nodded, and he sensed her thanks even without words. He gave her another sip of water, only a little, and waited for her to breathe evenly again. The night grew deeper, but he stayed steady, watching the small fire and the quiet rise and fall of her breathing. Now and then he added a thin stick to the flame. He kept the light soft and calm, just enough to warm her hands and face. He spoke in a low voice from time to time, not to ask questions but to make the space feel safe. He said simple things about the stars, about the wind, and about morning. He told her that dawn always comes, even when the dark feels endless. He told her he would stay right there until she no longer needed him. A few soft sounds drifted from the brush, but nothing pressed close. The smell of smoke and sage carried in the air, making a gentle wall that most animals did not care to cross. When a breeze came and the flame leaned, he cupped his hands to protect it, then opened his palms so the warmth could reach her again. She slept for a while and then stirred. He helped her drink a little water and rested her head on his folded coat. She touched the edge of the cloth around her wrists and gave a small nod. He answered with a quiet nod of his own. Words were not needed. The fire spoke for both of them. We are here. We are safe. The night will pass. He stayed alert to each small change. When the wind turned, he shifted his seat so the smoke would not trouble her. When the fire settled, he rearranged the tiny sticks to keep the heart of it alive. He listened to his horse downwind, hearing a soft stamp or a quiet shake of the head, small signs that all was well. He looked up at the sky and noted how the stars moved, marking the hours. It helped him keep time and keep calm. After a while, she opened her eyes and watched him feed the fire with 2 light twigs. In the glow, he saw a new focus in her eyes. She was more awake now, more present. Carefully, he offered her a bit of dry biscuit softened with a few drops of water. She chewed slowly. He waited. Then she looked toward the east and lifted her hand a little as if pointing. He leaned closer to understand. She said a short word, soft and round, then tapped her chest and pointed again toward the east. He thought about that sign. East would be the direction of first light and perhaps of people who knew her. He nodded to show he understood. Then, with his finger, he drew a simple line in the sand to show the place they were and a second line to show the direction he would try to take at dawn. She watched his hand and gave one more small nod. He placed his palm over his heart and then pointed to the east too. A promise is not always made with a sentence. Sometimes it lives in a gesture and the steady way a person keeps watch. The night passed in slow pieces. He let his mind rest when it could, but kept his senses open. He stretched his legs quietly to keep them from growing stiff, then tucked his knees back in to hold the warmth near. He rolled his shoulders now and then to keep them loose. He kept counting to 10 and back down to 1 when his thoughts grew heavy. Counting helped the minutes move. When the sky finally softened at its lowest edge, the world took a long, fresh breath. The dark lifted enough that shapes became clearer. The rock seam behind them, the curve of brush, the small pattern of prints near the stake. He added one last twig to the fire, then let it sink into a bed of warm coals. Dawnlight is a good blanket. It does not shout. It grows second by second until it fills the land. He stood and stretched a little, then looked around to decide on their next steps. The woman watched him with steady eyes. He knelt beside her and spoke gently. Morning is coming, he said, touching 2 fingers to the ground and then lifting them as if the day itself were rising. He pointed east again. She nodded. He offered her water, only a little, then checked the cloth around her wrists and ankles, making sure it still warmed without pressing. He helped her sit up with care, supporting her back with his arm. He needed a way to move her that would not hurt her. He looked around for what the land could offer. Close by, he found a long, smooth limb from a fallen mesquite. He tested its strength with a careful push. It held. He took his rope and a strip from the edge of his bedroll and began to make a simple carrier. He crossed the rope between 2 long branches and tied the cloth across, making a small net. He set the net low so it would be easier to pull and steady on the ground. He checked each knot twice. He did not hurry. Good work done slowly would save time later. When the sky turned pale and the first song of a small bird reached their circle, he carefully lifted her onto the soft bed of the carrier, using the coat as a cushion. He spoke to her as he moved, letting the calm sound guide the action. He made sure her legs were supported and that her hands could rest where they felt most comfortable. He tested the pull on the rope and the way the carrier slid over the earth. It moved better than he had hoped, especially on the patches of sand. On the harder ground, it made a soft whisper and then glided again. He spread cool ash over the last glow of the fire and stirred it until it was fully safe. He collected the rawhide strips he had cut the night before and placed them under a small stone, a simple mark the land would accept. He gathered his few things, shook out the bedroll, and tied it in a way that kept warmth near the woman's shoulders. Then he took the rope in both hands and began to pull. They moved slowly at first, learning the rhythm together. He kept to the flattest lines in the open wash where the ground was soft. The woman watched the land with clear eyes now, Once she lifted her hand a little to point, and he adjusted the path to match her sign. Another time, she spoke a short word and looked toward a low rise. He paused, listened, and then chose a line between two mesquite that kept them more hidden from open spaces. He trusted her sense of the place, and she trusted his care in the pull. The sun climbed a little higher, and the chill began to leave the air. He stopped to let her rest, placing a folded coat under her head and giving her a few sips of water. He let his horse breathe close to them so the gentle sound of an animal at ease could help her relax. He checked the knots on the carrier and tightened one that had slipped. He looked at the prints they made and at the clean line of their path. The day felt kinder than the night. From time to time, he saw small signs that people had once passed this way. A smooth stone darkened by old fire, a chipped piece that looked like it came from a shaped tool, a plant pushed aside where a foot may have stepped. These were quiet marks, not loud ones, but they told a story that felt close. The woman noticed them too. She touched her fingers to the ground near one small sign and closed her eyes for a moment. He understood the meaning without needing to be told. They were heading the right way. As the morning grew, the light became rich and clear. The land showed its colors, soft gold in the grass, dark green in the mesquite, and a gentle blue at the far edges where the hills lifted. A small bright bird flicked across their path and vanished into a bush. He breathed easier. The world looked awake and friendly, and the sounds were the sounds of daily life, a rustle, a buzz, a distant call that might have been a greeting from one ridge to another. They rounded a bend where the wash opened wider, and he saw a low bank that could shade them during a longer rest. He guided the carrier there and helped the woman sit up a bit more. He gave her a corner of the bedroll to hold to keep the sun from her eyes. He told her they would rest for a short while. She nodded and lifted her hand, making a simple sign that seemed to mean good. He rested too, kneeling with his hands on his thighs, feeling the earth firm and cool under him. He did not let the rest turn into delay. After a count of 50 slow breaths, he stood and began to pull again, keeping the same steady pace. He thought about the first time he had lifted the canteen to her lips and felt again the quiet weight of the promise he had made. Promises are like the rope in his hands. They only work if you keep a good hold. By now, the path felt like a gentle line pulling them forward. He watched for a line of smoke that might show a cook fire. He watched for the straight edge of woven cloth in a bush, a sign that someone had hung it to dry. He watched for figures on a ridge. He felt his heart rise with each small hope. Then he heard something new, soft, careful steps that were not his own, moving in the scrub to the east. He stopped and lifted a hand in a calm, open sign, palm forward. He did not reach for anything. He stood easy, letting the morning light show his face and the way his shoulders were low and relaxed. The steps came closer and then paused. He heard a soft word passed from one voice to another, like a note that moves from string to string. From the corner of his eye, he saw the woman's face brighten with a small shine of relief. She lifted her hand in the direction of the sound and whispered a word that carried both hope and home. 3 figures appeared between the mesquite, then 2 more, a little behind them. They moved with quiet care, eyes keen and searching. Their clothes and hair showed they were from the woman's band. Their faces were firm but not harsh. They saw the woman on the carrier first, and their eyes softened. Then they looked at him. He kept his hands easy and open, not stepping forward, not stepping back, simply being there in the honest light of the morning.